Right, so today I want to start by talking about Australia and this global news headline here, and it's just pure insanity that's going on. And Global News published an article that was actually yesterday at 6:53 a.m. by Katie Dangerfield, and it's titled "Australia's Extreme Second Lockdown Curbed the You Know What? Here's What It Took." And I'm not going to read the whole article, but they basically have some bullets here of some of the things that were included, and it's you cannot leave your home unless it's for exercising, caregiving, working, or buying essential supplies. You also can't go more than 5 kilometers away. Masks have to be worn outside. Schools changed to remote learning. Childcare centers are closed. You cannot have visitors or go to another person's house unless it's for the purpose of giving or receiving care. You can meet one other person outdoors for a maximum of 2 hours. There's a 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew. There's a ban on weddings. Restaurants and cafes only open for delivery and takeout. Retail, gyms, hair salons, bars are all closed. Now, they don't mention the part about the government arresting people for posting Facebook or making Facebook posts that the government doesn't like. So again, it's just absolute pure insanity. And frankly, I mean, this is wrong on so many levels. I mean, number one, it really bothers me personally because it is something that has affected me personally and many people around me. And number two, it's just flat out wrong. Yeah, if you literally force everybody to stay at home with literal martial law, draconian, nightmarish garbage, yeah, you're going to reduce the cases. But are you doing more harm than good? And the fact that these idiots, these pure idiots, authoritarian, just pieces of garbage, don't mention that just goes to show just how insane they are. Because again, if you don't consider alternatives when you make policies like this, you're absolutely beyond insane, like beyond insane. Um, and again, that's where we're at because again, the cases are going up again, especially in the major areas. You have other places locking down. I mean, it sounds like Ontario and maybe Quebec will re-lock down. I mean, they've already announced, draconian measures as far as fines and stuff go. It doesn't sound like Alberta's going to re-lock down, but again, I would put nothing past um, I would put nothing past some of these governments because, again, the fact that the lockdowns have been definitively proven wrong, they do way more harm than good. They have little to no effect on the spread. And again, places like Sweden, like North Dakota, like Florida, like many areas definitively prove that once you reach herd immunity, it really doesn't matter, and locking down doesn't do anything because what happens when you reopen? Well, you're just gonna have more cases. And here's the other thing: comparing Canada or any European country to Australia is not a fair comparison, and for the simple reason that Australia is an island nation, right? Like Canada has one of the largest land borders in the world. It may even be the largest, right? So, and not to mention too, like at no point have we banned flights from foreign countries. So again, the idea that the government has handled this well is absolutely insane. And the idea that again comparing us to Australia is fair, it is absolutely insane as well because again, they're an island country. It's a lot easier to control your borders when you're an island country, right? Like it's infinite amounts of times easier. Again, so that's just the thing I wanted to point out. But again, anybody's still taking this seriously at this point, like I really don't know what to say to these people. Like I really don't. And I mean, getting into that, this is from Phil Kerpen, and he says CDC estimated survival rates by age 0 to 19 is 99.997, 20 to 49, 99.98, um, 50 to 69, 99.5, and then 70 plus 94.6. So the first thing you realize is that um, the death rate for 0 to 19 is pretty much non-existent. Like it's literally like 1 in 10,000, right? Like it's absolutely insane. The actually the 20 to 49 is still like what, 2 in 2,000, or sorry, 2 in 10,000. Again, so it's exactly what I said that I've been saying for a long time now, is that for people under 50, the death rate is the same as the flu. And even in that 50 to 69 category, it's still only a little bit higher than the flu. I think the flu is like point 0.1, point 0.2, so it's a little bit higher. 70 plus is where we really have to start worrying. We've known this for months now. We've known this literally since, I think, maybe even April, but at the very least May. We've known this. We've had this data, and more just keeps coming out proving it, I guess, is the only difference. But the main point being, I guess, is that why in the world is anybody who isn't elderly not back to normal? Like, why in the world? It makes no sense. It's not even funny. The reason being is that the government just doesn't want to admit they're wrong, and they want to use this as a power grab. This is clearly being used as a power grab for the government, and I really don't care what the naysayers have to say, because again, the death rate is less than the flu, for most people. I mean, at the very least, for people under the age of 50, even 50 to 69, it's still not that big of an issue. Aside from the elderly, everybody else should be back to normal, aside from basically when you're visiting elderly grandparents. And here's the thing too. I've heard from, many reports, and even heard from some elderly people, I mean, within my family, that they don't even care anymore. Like, they want to be able to see their family. Like, if that's the risk they have to take, that's the risk they have to take. I have met hardly anyone in person. I mean, of the, 50 to 100 people I've interacted with on a regular or somewhat regular basis, within, since this whole thing has started, or at the very least, directly, with someone else who's interacted with someone directly, I know of literally one or two people that are actually, like, legitimately scared about this. So literally, like, less than, maybe 5% of the people I know. Now, again, that's not a fair comparison, for the population as a whole, but nonetheless, the vast majority of people are not overly worried about this. And of the ones that are, they're people that, most of them, have been whipped up into a frenzy by the mainstream media. If the mainstream media was actually honest about this kind of stuff and actually told people, yeah, it's less than the flu if you're under 50, it's literally like getting hit by lightning if you're under 20. So again, this idea that we should be worried about schools, even, like I say, the vast majority of people, like most teachers, are in that 20 to 49 category. So again, the whole argument of, oh, they're all going to give it to their teachers and the teachers are going to die. Well, no, that's not true. Um, and the whole asymptomatic spread hypothesis has been disproven. I mean, Fauci literally said, um, these kind of viruses are not driven by asymptomatic spread. That's what Fauci said. He is considered one of the world's foremost experts. So again, you got to trust him, right? But again, this is it's just pure insanity that's going on. I know I say that all the time, but it's absolute craziness. Like, again, the cases are going up, people are getting whipped up into a frenzy again, and it's for no reason. It's for no reason. The hospitalization numbers are pretty steady if you look across Canada. The numbers are going up, but the hospitalizations aren't. So anyway, this is from Kristi Noem. Again, she's the governor of South Dakota, and she says South Dakota's unemployment rate dropped to 4.8 in August. Our economy is quickly getting back to normal, and the future is very bright. Again, this is, like I mentioned, the idea that we need to have these draconian lockdowns and mask mandates and stuff. It makes no sense. It makes no sense, because again, the reasons that they use for justifying these draconian lockdowns are entirely anecdotal, assuming that a correlation means a causation, when there's plenty of contradictory evidence. And when it comes to doing this kind of stuff, you have to err on the side of freedom. You have to. It doesn't make any sense to not to. You don't be like, yeah, we're gonna kill, 10,000 people to save the lives of 5,000. It doesn't make any sense. Like, that's basically what the argument of the government during these lockdowns are. Like, we're going to make massive amounts of people fall into severe depression. We're going to force businesses out of business. People are going to die because they don't get cancer screenings. They're going to die from other lifestyle causes. Like, again, and that's the problem too when it comes to these lockdowns, is that the negative ramifications from the lockdowns are a lot harder to measure than the actual deaths from the virus, right? Because the deaths from the virus are a little easier to measure than someone committing suicide or someone dying down the road of heart disease because they, stopped exercising and, developed an eating disorder or, became an alcoholic or, abused their kids and maybe their kids go on to, you know, have, heart disease or an eating disorder or be obese or whatever. So again, that's the problem is that the negative ramifications of this whole thing are going to be felt for decades. But the negative ramifications of the whole virus is pretty much over. Like it's going down by the day. There may be a slight resurgence, but again, if you look at the numbers, the hospitalizations are staying very steady. The cases are going up, but again, the hospitalizations aren't. And the problem, like I say, is the fact that the government is just whipping people up into a frenzy. The mainstream media is whipping people up into a frenzy, basically. And the last thing I wanted to bring up here is from True North, and they say we'll plant 2 billion trees over the next 10 years. That's it. That's the tweet tweeted Trudeau on September 27th, 2019. The government has not planted a single tree since then. We were about a year out from that almost. And again, no trees. And this is the problem: is that like I've been saying all along, they don't care about the environment. They just pretend to care about the environment because environmentalism and these people that especially at the top that like to claim they care so much about the environment, the main goal is to push socialism. One of the authors of the Green New Deal literally admitted that the main goal is to push these further left policies. The goal isn't climate change. Like I say, if they actually cared about climate change, they would spend the vast majority of their time worried about convincing China and India to reduce their emissions. And again, they'll come up with, oh, per capita, China and India aren't that bad. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because again, if you, these are the same people that argue the world's going to end in 10 years if we don't address climate change, but yet they completely ignore the largest emitters. Like per capita could matter less to you if you actually thought that, right? Like if climate change doesn't pose a big issue, yeah, you can make the whole per capita argument, but if it does, per capita doesn't matter. And here's the other thing. When you add up the fact that Canada has a ton of forests and trees and plants, we put out literally less than 1% of the world's emissions. We may already be carbon neutral. I've seen conflicting numbers on that. So again, it's just this whole climate change push it's just pure hysteria. The main goal of the elites and of the politicians is to push for more left-wing, ideologies. The goal is to push for more socialism, more government control. It has nothing to do with climate change. If it did, they would repeal the carbon tax because again, we know the carbon tax does nothing. The BC government's numbers are very definitive on that. It does nothing. Um, and yet people still argue for that. They argue to increase it. Like it's absolute insanity. Again, so this is the problem too, and this is the thing too, is that, like I say, the goal is to push socialism. The problem is that if you're actually a true environmentalist, you could care less about the political ideology behind it. You're actually genuinely worried. The problem is that most of these people aren't. So again, that's the last thing I wanted to bring up. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, especially, but also BitChute and Parler. All those links are in the description, so you can find them all there.